Alright.
So, my great-grandfather came over to America from Italy in 1924, which of course was Prohibition. And his, I think, second youngest child, whose name I've forgotten, had some pretty serious health issues. And so the Liquor Control Board people would come around. Not that. I don't think they were FBI. Whatever. They were trying to keep people from...
No, it was technically Secret Service.
Secret Service. Okay. So they would come around and make sure that nobody was making wine. And so he would take them down and show them around the basement. Like, oh, well, what's this? And they would point to the wine barrels where he was making wine. And he'd be like, oh, well, that's just medicinal wine for my son. We rub it on his legs. It improves the circulation. And they was like, look, would you like to try some? And so they would share some drinks, have a very friendly conversation, and would leave him alone.
And this is why you always sample your wine as you make it.
That's right. That's an important part of the process.
Yes, Dicey Logic is no longer a D&D channel. It is now a wine tips channel.
To be fair, I believe those two activities are very closely related.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta give your adventurers some form of booze or else they'll wreck the joint.
That's true. Wait, or they'll wreck the joint?
I mean, they're gonna wreck it either way. I mean, you may as well at least make money off them by selling them booze.
That's fair. That is fair.
Speaking of booze, we have cider bottled, homemade cider, and we are going to be bottling wine for real. But anyway, that's just a fun little note. Anyway, welcome everyone to Dicey Logic.
Introduction music.
Do.
We have it, I promise.
I mean, it would have played right before that.
Oh, crap.
Remember, we have
I know.
Adventura from Michael Wavern.
I know, I'm just being me. I'm sorry about that, but I genuinely can't stop.
So this is the Dicey Logic Podcast on the Dicey Logic channel, a channel for daring adventurers who may not always use their heads, and when they do, the logic is rather dicey. I'm Vera.
I'm Steven.
And we are doing part 3 in Interesting Characters. This time, we are actually going to be talking about asshole players versus asshole characters. But before we get into that, a little bit of errata from our last broadcast. I said that I would be going to Steel City Con. That's actually Steven going to Steel City Con. I'm going to be at Techo, which I got the tickets both at the same time, didn't realize that it was the same weekend, and went, hey, Steven, this is now your job.
And of course, I will accept free tickets to just about anywhere. And Steel City Comic Con, unlike Techo, is accessible from the Pittsburgh bus system, so that works out for me.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, you just take the 67. It's in Monroeville. It's at the convention center.
Yeah. I don't want to go in Monroeville.
That's fine. I don't have much of a choice most of the time. So.
Oh. Okay. Well, it all works out for everyone then.
Yep, it does.
Alright, so if you're at Techo, look for me. I will be probably wearing a pink kimono because I'm going to be cosplaying, of course, because it's Techo. Botan from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh,
so I'm going to actually dye my hair blue. It's good.
That's going to be great.
I know, right? I've always wanted blue hair. And now I have an excuse.
Now I feel pressure to come up with some sort of cosplay thing.
But anyway, and Steven will be at Steel City Con. I am working on getting buttons printed. And by working on, I mean trying to decide where to do it, because they all basically do the same thing. And also making the button design. But there should be buttons. They will at least have our yellow thinking dice emoji logo on them. So look out for that. If you want them, free buttons.
And who doesn't love buttons?
I don't not love buttons. I love buttons.
I don't not love So you like buttons?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Sorry, it just took me a little bit of time to read. Listen.
To audio process that.
Yeah.
But anyway. Alright, so anyway, asshole characters. Now, it may not surprise you, or it may surprise you to know that I can be an asshole sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I should also add myself on that list, because, I was just a dick right there.
I mean, GMs can be some of the most vindictive, hateful creatures in the entire world.
Second only to players.
Now, this little deal here that we're doing here, it actually has a point. There is a difference between an asshole, just being an asshole in general, and being an asshole player. Related sometimes, but not. An asshole player is a player that is basically an asshole to the rest of the group for no particular reason, except they only want their own enjoyment. As a GM, you really have to get in there and take care of that, because you are the GM, you are the god of the world, but also you are the authority at the table. So if somebody is being an asshole, you have to take care of it. It can be very uncomfortable to handle this type of situation, and I've been very lucky that I really haven't had to do it too often. But it is something that has to occur. And maybe they just don't realize that what they're doing is asshole behavior. There's some people that are not very socially conscious. Again, me. That's
certainly true. I think, the line is, if you're, taking bags out, or fun out of everybody's bag and hoarding it yourself, that's really the thing that is unacceptable. Because, you can have a character who's an asshole.
Oh, yeah. AVS is an asshole, and I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, and that's actually a lot of fun. But it really depends on how much they're an asshole for the actual people you're playing with. You can beat up on the NPCs pretty much as you like. Sooner or later, yes, the GM's going to have one of them turn out to be an ancient dragon. But, them's the breaks.
That's an idea.
Really? You didn't know? Alright. Huh. Anyway, I think back, the last time I really played with someone who was a total asshole was in Shadowrun. And I don't want to say it too much because the guy had some, real serious mental health problems. But, he would make everything worse all of the time. And whenever anybody tried to get him to behave otherwise, regardless of how it was approached, he would get upset. The only time I got, a positive response to it was, since this was Shadowrun, everybody had some multiple roles, and he was supposed to be our hacker, but was also a mage and a sniper. And if you're thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a particularly good Shadowrun character, you'd be right. And so, at one point, I just hired us another hacker, and his character got upset, well, I thought you would want to be sniping. Because that's the main thing that his character did. And that actually worked. Because it came off as I was being considerate rather than I was preventing his incompetence from getting us all killed. So, sometimes trial and error can work. But then that guy burned us all in the game by not resisting a read mind spell cast by Buttercup. You ever read about Buttercup?
No, I haven't.
Buttercup is a free spirit who runs one of the Japanese corporations in Shadowrun. She's an extremely powerful being who is known to be fairly inscrutable and not super trustworthy. And so, by not resisting her reading mind, or detect thoughts spell...
Well, hang on, wouldn't that be something that he wouldn't have had control over, or...
He voluntarily chose not to roll a resistance to it.
Oh, well, that is an asshole thing.
Yeah. So she learned everything about us and sold us out. Shockingly. But actually, that ended up working out great because that character got kidnapped by I think toxic shit. No. It was a toxic shaman. And so the rest of the characters who had sort of previously set up some bolt holes we didn't tell that guy about, because... we kind of saw this coming. Rather than going and saving his character, we sold her out to the police and her Yakuza father, and basically just rented a boat for the evening and watched a military strike team assault the warehouse where she was being kept.
Oh, wow.
That was a shitty thing to do for us, but I feel like it was... an appropriate response. And then, of course, the cops turned her over to her Yakuza father. And then that character was just done. And the player was not pleased about it, but it was like a pretty direct result of the player's choices.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, I guess we could have been more helpful, but I feel like at some point when you burn your team enough times, like, I joined that game pretty late, and by the time that I joined with my face character, their lack of face had gotten them burned from so many jobs that they were working for the Ghoul Liberation Front. Who were a bunch of terrorists doing terrible jobs for them and getting paid real bad for it. Like, that was the level of expendable that they had been before my character stepped in, like, oh, wait a minute, what you just need is a little customer service. I can manage that.
And that contrasts a bit with how I play Avayas. Now, as I play Avayas, I know that she uses some very dicey logic when making her decisions. And, I do check in with the players, hey, if Avayas does this, is this going to be an asshole thing to do? And also, is it something that you are directly opposed to checking in? Because, as Steven illustrated a bit with that story there, an asshole player pretty much only cares about their own amusement and not anybody else. Whereas an asshole character, the player will check in with other people to make sure that there isn't a terrible session going on, so that they can improve for the future. Now, one of my favorite stories is how we all became barons because of something that Avayas did, which was kind of an asshole move at the time. You see, there was a big town, there was a dragon that was basically a big central town, big kobold army was around it, and they were there because their mistress, this great red dragon, was in town. And the dragon was trying to get control of the valley again, and this was where the power structure was, and we had actually killed a couple of griffins on the road, got a couple of griffin eggs. We were entertaining the possibility of, like, hatching them and raising them, or giving them, or, selling them in town. Avayas, when we got to this dragon, or this kobold encirclement, decided to give one of the eggs to the kobolds. Like, I really didn't check with the players too much ahead of time. I figured, worst comes to worst, it just comes out of my own profit, right?
Makes
but on
sense.
the surface, this looks like kind of an asshole move, like, hey, we worked real hard for this and I'm just giving it away. Well, the kobolds then invited us in, we met with the dragon, and now the dragon rules the valley and we're all barons and baronesses.
So you would say that you very successfully dealt with the dragon there?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, no, but this dragon's not like other dragons because she actually cares about people, which is really weird for a dragon.
That
she
doesn't make any sense.
She knows she's super superior, but also it's like how dogs are. It's like how people are with dogs. Like, that's kind of where that's kind of like her attitude.
Scratching us?
No, the dragon likes having us around as pets, I guess.
All right, that makes sense.
Which works for Avayas. Avayas is just interested in power. So, if she can get that power by being a pet, she's going to do it. But that also brings up, at the start of this whole adventure, Avayas was really kind of a jerk. Like, her whole mindset was, these other people, they're just pawns for me to be able to reach my end goal. But then they ended up saving her life. That, if you're being an asshole character, if you're playing an asshole character, that kind of sacrifice to save your life, you have to kind of do a little bit of a shift with your character. Like, oh, I actually care about these people because they saved my life. I guess I won't be so much an asshole to them. But then you can start being an asshole to others and start, trying to manipulate others. And basically, they aren't so much your tools as they are your allies at that point. And maybe allies aren't friends, but the more that you hang out with them, the more that they save your life and you save them, they grow into that friend slot. Which assholes don't normally have, but your character has gone through so much growth that that slot sort of opened up. So an asshole character gives a lot of opportunity for character growth.
Definitely.
So if you're going to play an asshole character, don't play it with, oh, I'm just going to be an asshole all the time and everything's about me and I don't care about anybody else. Play it as, hey, I see these people here that have a similar goal to mine. I'm going to hang around with them for a while. Yeah, I'm going to be a jerk. And then when they save me a few times, then you build that story arc. Another thing is, this didn't happen to me personally, but there was a story I read online about a person, I can't remember who it was or where it was a while ago, so I'm sorry if this is your story, let us know. But there was a cleric in the party that refused to heal the barbarian because they worshipped the wrong god and they wouldn't heal anybody else until they said, oh yes, I'll worship your god. Okay, that's kind of an asshole thing.
I actually kind of like that. I feel like there needs to be more proselytization in D&D.
I mean, yeah.
It obviously depends on the group.
Yeah, and that's a good angle to take for an interesting character. But apparently this cleric singled out the barbarian. So maybe it was something between the players. And if you're a good player, you can come across with this. Oh, I won't waste my own healing on you, but here's some healing potions or whatever, Just play it up where it's my god's healing isn't good enough for you. Here. There's plenty of ways to play that without being a hindrance to the party.
True.
So apparently this all culminated with the entire group being, with the entire group just not...
Staging an intervention? I would love... I'm just imagining that How I Met Your Mother intervention banner. Listen, we know that your god doesn't want you to heal this guy, but, him not dying is what keeps the rest of us alive, so maybe do that.
I would say it was an intervention of sorts in the story. You see, everybody was sick of this cleric by this point, probably because the player was an asshole.
Mm.
And so the cleric ended up getting paralyzed and ended up falling into a pit trap and getting paralyzed on spikes, and everyone just left him until the GM said, wait, he's your cleric, you need him. So they all reluctantly went back, but even the GM was kind of...
That's sad. I'm a big fan of letting consequences happen.
Oh, just watch. Or just listen, it gets better.
Good.
They get to a temple of this cleric's god. A god of peace, harmony, and stuff, and love and stuff, whatever. Generic, love everyone kind of god, which... let's face it, that's already out of character for this player at this point. And when he's unparalyzed, the first thing this cleric does is attack the barbarian in a temple dedicated to a god of non-violence.
Seems like a good way to not get any cleric levels anymore.
Yeah, the GM then said, oh yeah, you're excommunicated for this because this was an egregious assault inside the temple, and then the player threw a fit and left because he couldn't use any of the cleric abilities anymore and was basically massively debuffed because he was being...
Because he broke his religious rules. That all makes sense.
And, so it was in-game consequences, but then the player threw a fit and, stormed out. A person playing an asshole character shouldn't get upset when there are consequences for the asshole character's behavior, and in fact, should be looking forward to them. I love watching what happens when Avayas fails, because it's hilarious. I love Avayas, don't get me wrong, but if she's got a walloping coming to her, obviously she's going to try to avoid it, but I do kind of want to see that walloping happen, because she deserves it. But an asshole player, using a character being an asshole as an excuse, will get upset when there's actually consequences for this behavior. Which, let's be honest, it's not, consequences should be expected.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me of a situation I'm in my Wednesday game, where my character, a very, very nice man named Skip Weiss, who is it's an apocalypse world game, so he's basically the town drug dealer. He's in conflict with another character over his slaver pass, and like, when slavers showed up and looked like they were threatening our area, Skip's reaction was, well, I guess we're gonna have to kill all those guys, because slavers tend to be pretty trash people, and I would know. And like, there's been this escalating, and Skip only figured out that one of the other characters took exception to his previous life last session, when the character made several comments about it. And Skip, who has been in like a fairly, I want to say, ragey, paranoid mode of being, is like, is this a person who needs to go on the list of people who need to die before those I care about are safe? And like, me as a player, I'm trying to push that back, but like, there's clearly a conflict there. And at some point, and I don't know when that will be, it might be tomorrow, it might be next, it'll happen pretty soon. It's going to come down to, well, you decide to be the ant on the boot. But like, throughout this process, the player in question and I have been, I've been very clear, like, hey, it's okay that you want to kill my character, but know that my character is much better at fighting than yours is. I recommend ambushing. Ambushes are great. Because I'm personally extremely opposed to slavers. And like, I feel like my character should get comeuppance for that. But like, he's not gonna back down. And actually, I've built this character around being the guy who will do whatever horrible things are necessary to protect his sort of kidnapped sort of daughter. It's complicated, don't ask. Yeah. Child partner.
Yeah, and I guess that also brings up one of the best reasons for an asshole character, or one of the best ways to play an asshole character, is have a reason to be an asshole. Your character has a kid that they're protecting. Yep. Avayes has a revenge plot from her backstory that she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that makes you much more sympathetic, which means you can get away with a lot more dickishness. I mean, it's important to have ethics, because virtue is how we strive towards excellence.
It's important to be relatable so you can be more of a dick.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, so if you're playing an asshole character, have a reason for them to be an asshole. It's built into the backstory. Oh, their parents died when they were a kid, although that's like 90% of all D&D backstories. But yeah. let's pretend.
Listen,
that
it works for Batman. It can work for you. Actually, what I liked about that character from the Shadowrun game is that the game that was in was sort of a sequel campaign to my introduction to 5th edition Shadowrun, where it was going to have like a bunch of different GMs with like 20 players doing interrelated stuff. It was going to be amazing, and the guy who was running it like wanted total control over it, and basically quit and took his crap with him. But like, maybe 10 of us who had been like doing the actual work had become friends, and so we sort of spun off from that. But we had a problem, because we had all his crap that was like really bad. It paid terribly, it didn't make a lot of sense, and it was going to send us in, who were very weak characters at this point, right, against like top level high-end corporate security who would just murder us. And so I proposed this thing, let's just skip ahead a few months, refer to that as the Renraku job, and have it taken as written that our characters will never speak of it again. So that, whenever we're in a shitty situation, one of us can bring up the Renraku job, and the others can say, we swore never to speak of that again. And, like, the player in question, his character was fine before the Renraku job. After the Renraku job was never okay again. So, like, my headcanon for this is that, the character's name is Alice. Alice was just broken by whatever nonsense actually happened during the Renraku job, and sort of spiraled out in a orgy of murder and occasionally fleeing from the police. Like,
That's a phrase you don't hear very often.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on who you're hanging out with. But...
Yeah, I hear it more often than I should. So again, make sure that your character has a backstory that explains this behavior. Again, and again, these are stories that we're telling, so our characters should have character arcs.
Yep.
Things that they can move towards, things that they can move away from. Basically so that it's a story that evolves over time. I mentioned that Avayas was really an asshole in the beginning. Like, at the very beginning of the game, if somebody had come up to Avayas and said, "Hey, I've got a legion for you. All you have to do is kill this, kill your friend here," she would have done it in a heartbeat. Because her whole thing is she needs an army to go fight the Duke that killed her parents. And, like, there's a lot more to it than that. That's just kind of an oversimplification.
Have you heard the good news about poisoning? Like, it's a
well,
lot
no,
lower
she wants
heat.
to completely destroy his land.
Well, that's just a little extreme.
She is a little extreme.
Alright. Actually, I feel like the right thing to do there is just drip some mercury into it and let him go crazy and destroy it himself.
Now, you kind of touched a little bit on another aspect of assholes at the table. Asshole GMs.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I will admit that I have not been the best GM ever at times. And actually, Steven kind of had an issue with me when he first joined, where there was an adjustment period.
Yeah, there definitely was. It took me some time to see what you were doing, and that I actually liked it. And also, you did rob my character of, like, 90% of what he could do. And, like, you're like, well, I replaced it immediately, but, like, that's not my character's experience. Yeah. And I think you underestimated how he would react to
and
that.
I really did, and that was me not taking into account you as a player.
Yeah.
So
let's just get the context for that real quick. I had a character who was an 11-year-old child who maybe took out some loans with the mob. Like, a lot. Like, he was maybe $100,000 in debt to the mob to pay for all of the things that let him be a rigger in Shadowrun. And so, like, he needed to come up with $10,000 every month to pay off the interest on his debt. Like...
I just love this idea. Oh, you need to go to the best part. Kit was... This character's name was Kit, and he was a furry.
Oh, that's true.
He was a platypus furry.
As is only right and proper.
There were so many funny things going on with this. Like,
oh, yeah.
He was building a fursuit.
he had built a fursuit. He was just wiring it up so that he could go Shadowrunning in it. She never really did.
Our wonderful, precocious 12-year-old rigger who didn't really think to ask any questions about where used cybernetics actually come from, so he was cool with the situation.
It's true.
And in the background, that's Angela. You've heard her before if you've listened to our first episode.
Yes. And she's quite correct. Kit, being 11, did not ask important questions about who was giving him loans for... I don't know, something like $60,000. And maybe he should have read that fine print. Like a lot.
The running gag is that he went to like some sketchy mafia site, and it was just like terms and conditions like that people like don't read. And like in those terms and conditions where we can break your kneecaps. But anyway,
it's a very Shadowrun end user license agreement. Yes.
I feel like that's just end user license agreements in general. But
True.
like from his point of view, like that van is the only thing. Oh, and they murdered his aunt who he was living with.
That was fun.
Yeah. Like that happened before the game started. So like from his point of view, that van was the only thing keeping him alive.
And me as the GM, I took the van away and replaced it with a different van, like an upgraded van.
Really more of a tank.
Yeah.
Much closer to a tank.
Like a literal tank, pretty much. And, brought in this big piece of hardware that was like, hey, this is better, I'm sure you'll enjoy this. And that was my thinking as the GM. So it wasn't necessarily intentional asshole behavior, but I didn't realize the impact it would have had. And that can be cleared up just by talking with your players.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a plan for a campaign thing, but this big thing you like, I'm going to have to take it away temporarily while we do this. And I did kind of rectify it a bit by giving it back later.
Yeah, I
But-
mean, it worked out, but, like, I feel like that's a risky proposition, because that's what you essentially did. I mean, I'm going to put this in D&D terms, because that's how
Yeah.
I felt it, but that's like how where I was relating to it from. Was like, hey, you don't have any class levels anymore, because my character's, all of his skills were built into this van. Everything, like, he's an 11-year-old, he can't fight people. Like, his stats were low enough for me to get away with calling him an 11, because I needed those points to make him not inept in the van. And so, like, my rule of thumb for that is, like, don't take things away. There are other ways that could have handled that, but, like, it worked out.
Yeah, and, like, there were some growing pains as we introduced a new member, Steven, to the group.
Yes.
Because, like, the other members already knew that when I did stuff like this, I would put things back to normal or give them some upgrade or bonus for it. You know, because that was kind of the way I was operating at the time. I've sort of moved away from that a little bit, just because I know Steven doesn't like it, and I can see how it can rub some people the wrong way. And we can actually discuss this more in topic next time, because it looks like we're actually out of time. We kind of seamlessly went from one topic into the next.
Wow, it's almost like we planned this out. He said lying. We have no plans. Usually we just make the next topic be wherever we stop off.
No, but we have like a little discussion thread here.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't actually plan this part out. Look, it's a good next topic, and I'm totally in on it.
But you're reading off a script.
Shh! Shh! But I wrote the script. Look, just go with it.
Alright. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We really appreciate you. We are going to sign off now.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And,
See? I said it nice this time.
You did. And ring the bell.
Oh, yeah. The bell. You know about that.
And also, join our Sultron. We're going to keep saying that until we have, like, an
Forgot about
actual...
Sultron.
How could you forget? It's so great.
It's been a shitty week. But yeah, join our Sultron. What were you using it for anyway?
Also, there is a new video on the channel by the time this goes up. So check that out. It is the story of Nex and the Ball of Yarn. Calling that is probably a little bit misleading because there's a lot more to it than that, but I like to keep you guessing. So that's the title. New video, which isn't actually animated or anything, so it's literally just a still image with me talking.
Listen,
but
if we call it a video, it's a video. So there's a new video, and we know you'll enjoy it.
Anyway, do all this stuff, and like, subscribe, all that stuff. And thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
All right, night, everybody.
What did you forget about Sultry?
It's been a week. All right, that's all I gotta say.